Taxi driver's secret. It started on a rainy Monday morning, the kind where the heavens seemed to pour their frustrations on the earth below. The bustling city streets of Abuja were alive with the chaos of honking horns, splashing puddles, and people racing for cover. Among the frenzy was an ordinary yellow taxi parked by the roadside, its driver soaked to the skin. His name was Chijioke, and he didn't look like much, his worn-out cap tilted low, his clothes simple, and his shoes barely holding together. But beneath this humble disguise lay a billionaire, the son of Chief Okachukwu, one of the wealthiest men in Nigeria. Why would a man of such status reduce himself to this? That's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Chijioke had grown tired of the superficiality of his privileged life. Every woman he met seemed to have one thing in common, an interest in his wealth. There was Binta, for instance, the daughter of another tycoon, who was all beauty and sophistication. She had a degree from a prestigious university abroad, but her obsession with appearances and social status made Chijioke wary. He began to wonder if anyone would ever love him for who he truly was. So, with his father's reluctant blessing, he came up with a plan. He would step out of his luxurious mansion and into the world of ordinary people. He would live among them, see their struggles, and, perhaps, find someone who could love him without knowing his true identity. For weeks, Chijioke became a taxi driver. He rented a modest one-room apartment in a crowded part of the city, far from the gated estates he had known all his life. It didn't take long for him to realize how difficult life was for those on the other side of the wealth divide. He woke up at dawn every day, weaving through Abuja's congested roads, picking up passengers who barked orders at him or sometimes didn't pay at all. Some called him names, others laughed at his poor clothing. But the most humiliating moments came when he drove passengers to luxury hotels or high-end stores and they sneered at him as if he was invisible. One day, a passenger, a well-dressed man, forgot his wallet in the back seat. Chijioke drove across town to return it. The man didn't even thank him. "Next time, mind your business, driver," the man said coldly. Despite the harshness, Chijioke learned valuable lessons. He saw how hard people work to survive, from the street hawkers who risked their lives between moving cars to the single mother selling groundnuts at the market to feed her children. His heart softened, and he began to respect the resilience of the poor. Chijioke's life took a turn one evening when he drove a woman named Ebele home. She was a house helper for a wealthy family. Ebele had missed her boss, and when she entered his taxi, she apologized profusely for her dirty clothes, explaining she had spent the day scrubbing floors. Unlike most passengers, Ebele was kind. She smiled warmly and offered him food she had packed from work. When she realized she didn't have enough money for the fare, she promised to pay him the next time she saw him. True to her word, Ebele flagged him down a week later and handed him the money. "Thank you for trusting me," she said. Chijioke was stunned. Most people would have forgotten or avoided him altogether. Over time, Ebele and Chijioke struck up a friendship. She told him about her dreams of starting a small tailoring business and how she sent most of her earnings to her siblings in the village. Chijioke admired her selflessness and humility. She treated everyone with respect, even when she was treated poorly by her employers. Things came to a head at a party held by Binta's father, where Ebele was working as a temporary staff member, serving drinks. Chijioke attended in his billionaire identity, dressed in a sleek suit. As Binta flaunted her designer gown and tried to charm him, he noticed Ebele struggling to balance a tray of drinks under the weight of her employer's disdain. At one point, a guest accidentally spilled wine on Ebele's uniform. Instead of apologizing, they berated her. Chijioke watched as Ebele smiled politely, cleaned up the mess, and continued her work. He couldn't take it anymore. "Stop!" Chijioke's voice rang through the hall. Everyone turned to stare. Why do you treat her like she's less than human? The room fell silent. Chijioke crossed over to Ebele and helped her carry the tray. This woman has more dignity in her little finger than most of you combined, he said. That night, Chijioke made his decision. He didn't want a life filled with pretense and superficiality. He wanted someone who could see the man behind the money. And so, a few weeks later, he proposed to Ebele. Ebele was shocked. Me, marry you? But I'm just a house helper. And I was a taxi driver when we met, Chijioke replied with a smile. You saw me for who I am, not what I have. That's the kind of love I want. When the truth about Chijioke's identity came out, the world was stunned. Binta was furious, calling him a fool for choosing a nobody over her. But Chijioke didn't care. He had found what he was looking for, a woman with a pure heart, someone who loved him for himself. Their wedding was small but filled with joy. Chijioke returned to his family's business with a renewed sense of purpose, using his wealth to support underprivileged communities and create opportunities for people like Ebele. And Ebele. She never let her new status change her. She started her tailoring business, had other women from her village, and remained as kind and humble as the day Chijioke met her. Because sometimes, true wealth isn't found in money, but in the love and respect we give and receive. Ebele's rise from a house helper to Chijioke's wife was not without challenges. The whispers began long before their wedding day. People who once ignored her now scrutinized every aspect of her life. The staff at the mansion, accustomed to the billionaire lifestyle, doubted she could fit in. Some even tried to sabotage her by spreading rumors that she had bewitched Chijioke. But Ebele remained unshaken. She approached her new life with the same grace and humility that had won Chijioke's heart. She treated the staff with respect, learning their names and listening to their stories. Slowly, she won them over, not with authority, but with kindness. Even the most skeptical of them found it hard not to admire her sincerity. One of the pivotal moments in their marriage came a year later when Chijioke invited his father, Chief Okachukwu, to visit their home. The chief had been wary of Ebele, worried she wouldn't understand the responsibilities of being part of a wealthy family. When he arrived, he expected to find a woman overwhelmed by the demands of her new life. Instead, he found Ebele sitting on the floor with the mansion's gardeners and cooks, sharing a meal she had prepared herself. The chief watched as she laughed and listened to their stories, making everyone feel valued. Later, he pulled Chijioke aside. My son, he said, I doubted your choice, but now I see what you saw in her. Ebele's heart is richer than all the gold in our vaults. She reminds me of your mother when we first met. Chijioke smiled. Father, I didn't marry Ebele for what she could bring to this family. I married her because she makes me a better man. Their story became an inspiration, not just within their circle, but throughout the city. Media outlets got wind of the tale of the billionaire who married a house helper, and the story spread like wildfire. People who once mocked Ebele now saw her as a beacon of hope, proof that goodness and humility could triumph over prejudice and status. But not everyone was pleased. Binta, still bitter about being passed over, made it her mission to discredit Ebele. She attended public events where Ebele was present, making sly comments about her background. One evening at a gala, Binta approached Ebele, her voice dripping with sarcasm. So, Ebele, how does it feel to go from scrubbing floors to walking on red carpets? Quite a fairy tale, isn't it? Ebele, unruffled, responded with her usual calm. Yes, it is a fairy tale. But in every fairy tale, the heroine remains true to herself, no matter where life takes her. The room erupted in applause, and Binta left, defeated. As the years passed, Chijioke and Ebele's love deepened. They had their share of disagreements, as any couple does, but their mutual respect always brought them back to each other. Ebele often reminded Chijioke of the lessons he had learned during his time as a taxi driver. One day, Chijioke proposed an idea that changed everything. "Ebele, remember how hard life was for people like you before we met? I think he can do more to help." Together, they launched the Hope Foundation, an initiative aimed at supporting underprivileged communities with education, vocational training, and small business loans. Ebele became the face of the foundation, using her story to inspire others. She often traveled to villages, sitting with women and children, listening to their struggles, and offering practical solutions. Chijioke, on the other hand, used his influence to attract donors and investors, ensuring the foundation had the resources it needed to thrive. Their marriage also transformed Chijioke. He no longer measured success by the size of his bank account or the luxury of his possessions. Instead, he found fulfillment in the smiles of the people they helped and the gratitude in their eyes. One day, Chijioke revisited the small, cramped apartment where he had lived as a taxi driver. He brought Ebele along. "This is where it all began," he said, looking around the dingy room. "These walls saw me at my lowest, but they also gave me the clarity to find you." Ebele squeezed his hand. "And it's because you were willing to step into someone else's shoes, Chijioke. That's what made you different." Their children grew up hearing the story of how their parents met, and it became a cornerstone of their family values. Ebele and Chijioke taught them that no matter how wealthy they became, they must never look down on others. One of their sons, Uchenna, grew up to be a lawyer who fought for workers' rights, inspired by his mother's journey. Their daughter, Ada, became a teacher in rural schools, carrying forward the lessons of humility and service. Looking back, Ebele often said, "Life is like a patchwork quilt. Some pieces are bright and beautiful, while others are dark and rough. But when you put them together, they create something whole, something meaningful." And so, Chijioke and Ebele's story wasn't just about love, it was about transformation, about two people who, despite their differences, built a life grounded in respect, humility, and a shared desire to make the world a better place. In the end, they proved that wealth isn't about what you have, but about what you give. And that, my friend, is a story worth telling. As their family grew and their foundation expanded, Chijioke and Ebele became symbols of hope in their community. But their journey wasn't without trials, as life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. One fateful day, a major scandal erupted that threatened to tarnish Chijioke's reputation. A disgruntled former business associate accused him of embezzlement. The media latched onto the story, twisting it into tales of corruption and greed. Overnight, Chijioke went from being a beloved philanthropist to a man fighting for his integrity. Ebele stood by him through it all. "The truth will come out," she reassured him during the long nights when he couldn't sleep. "You've always been an honest man, and no lie can destroy that." But the pressure was immense. Sponsors began pulling out of the Hope Foundation, and their family became the target of online abuse. Their children were bullied at school, and even some friends distanced themselves, fearful of being associated with the scandal. Chijioke could have hired the best lawyers and PR firms to fight back, but he chose a different path. With Ebele's support, he decided to face the public himself. At a packed press conference, Chijioke stood in front of cameras and journalists, his wife by his side. He spoke openly about his journey, from being a taxi driver to meeting Ebele and building their foundation. He acknowledged the challenges of wealth and power but firmly denied the accusations. "My life's work isn't about accumulating wealth," he said. "It's about using what I have to create opportunities for those who don't. The people who know me, the people I've served, know the truth. And I'll let my actions speak louder than any accusation." Ebele stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I've known Chijioke in his lowest moments, when he had nothing but the cloth on his back. And even then, he was a man of integrity. I stand by him, not because he's my husband, but because I know his heart. Her words struck a chord. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Journalists started digging deeper into the accuser's claims and found inconsistencies. Eventually, the truth came out. The accusations were fabricated out of jealousy and spite. The accuser was exposed, and Chijioke's name was cleared. The ordeal brought Chijioke and Ebele even closer. It reminded them of the fragility of public opinion and the importance of staying true to their values. They used the experience as a lesson for their children. Power and wealth can make you a target, Chijioke told them. But if you walk with integrity, even the darkest storm will pass. Ebele added, and remember, no matter how high you rise, always be grounded in kindness. It's what saved your father and me. With their name restored, the Hope Foundation saw a resurgence. Donations poured in, and their work expanded beyond Nigeria to other parts of Africa. They built schools in rural areas, provided clean water to villages, and created mentorship programs for young entrepreneurs. Ebele took a hands-on role in these projects, often traveling to remote areas to ensure the work was being done properly. She insisted on staying in modest accommodations and eating the same food as the locals, earning their trust and admiration. One evening, while visiting a small village in northern Nigeria, Ebele sat under a mango tree with a group of women. They shared stories of their struggles and dreams, and one woman asked Ebele, "Do you ever regret marrying Chijioke? It must have been hard to go from being a helper to being a wife to such a powerful man." Ebele smiled, her eyes sparkling with wisdom. "I don't regret a thing. Chijioke didn't choose me because of my status, and I didn't choose him because of his wealth. We chose each other because we saw something deeper, something no money or title can buy. And that's why we've survived every challenge." Their love story became the stuff of legend, not just because of its romance, but because of the way it inspired others to see beyond wealth, status, and appearances. In a world obsessed with material success, Chijioke and Ebele reminded everyone of the power of humility, resilience, and love. As they grew older, their children carried their legacy forward. Uchenna, the lawyer, became a fierce advocate for labor rights, challenging exploitative companies. Ada, their daughter, built schools in underserved areas, naming them after her mother. Chijioke and Ebele retired to a quieter life in the countryside, spending their days tending to a small farm and enjoying the company of their grandchildren. But even in retirement, they remain a guiding light for their community, proof that true wealth lies not in what you have, but in how you use it to uplift others. And so, the story of the billionaire taxi driver and the house helper became more than just a tale of love, it became a legacy, one that would inspire generations to come. In their golden years, Chijioke and Ebele found joy in simplicity. Their farm became a gathering place for friends, family, and villagers who sought their wisdom. They often sat under a large baobab tree in their yard, telling stories of their journey and the lessons they had learned along the way. Ebele, who had once been unsure of her place in the billionaire's world, now stood as its matriarch. She was respected not for her wealth but for her character. She mentored young women, teaching them how to be self-reliant and how to navigate life with humility and grace. Chijioke, on the other hand, used his experiences to write a memoir titled The Taxi Driver's Heart, Lessons from the Road. In it, he recounted his days as a taxi driver, the struggles of the poor, and how those experiences shaped him into a better man. The book became a bestseller, touching countless lives. In their old age, they faced one last test. The farm they cherished was located on land targeted by a large corporation for a development project. When approached with an offer to sell, Chijioke and Ebele refused, knowing that the project would displace many villagers. The battle was long and arduous, involving court cases and public protest. But in the end, justice prevailed. The company backed down, and the villagers were allowed to remain. It was a fitting conclusion to a life spent fighting for the underprivileged. At the celebration that followed, Ebele addressed the crowd. "We didn't fight because we are special," she said. "We fought because every person deserves dignity, a home, and a chance to thrive. Never forget that true strength lies in standing up for what is right." Advice and lessons learned. As their story reached its twilight, Chijioke and Ebele shared their advice with anyone who would listen. "Wealth is a tool, not a measure of worth." Chijioke often said, "Money can buy comfort, but it can't buy respect, love, or happiness. Use what you have to uplift others. That's the only legacy worth living. Kindness costs nothing but is priceless." Ebele's life was a testament to this truth. "A kind word or a small gesture can change someone's life," she would say. Never underestimate the power of treating others with respect. Humility opens doors that pride cannot. Chijioke's journey as a taxi driver taught him that humility isn't weakness, it's strength. When you're willing to learn from others, no matter their status, you grow. True love sees beyond appearances. Their marriage proved that love isn't about titles, beauty, or wealth. Find someone who values your soul, not your possessions, Chijioke advised. That's the kind of love that lasts. Success is measured by impact, not accumulation. Together, they redefined success as the number of lives they touched, not the number of zeros in their bank account. The greatest riches, Ebele often said, are found in the joy of giving and the bonds we build with others. When Chijioke and Ebele eventually passed on, their funeral was attended by thousands, rich and poor, young and old, from all walks of life. People came not just to mourn, but to celebrate the lives of two individuals who had shown the world what it meant to live with purpose. Their children and grandchildren carried their torch, ensuring that the values of humility, love, and service continued to thrive. The Hope Foundation expanded its reach, building schools, hospitals, and community centers across Africa. And so, the story of Chijioke and Ebele became more than a tale, it became a guide, a reminder that no matter where you come from or what you have, you can choose to live a life of meaning. Final lesson. Life is unpredictable, filled with both challenges and blessings. But as Chijioke and Ebele proved, your choices, not your circumstances, define who you are. Whether you're a billionaire, a taxi driver, or a house helper, the values of humility, kindness, and love have the power to transform lives, starting with your own. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more legends, wisdom, and excitement straight from the heart of Africa. Be sure to click the bell icon so you never miss out on our upcoming captivating stories. See you in the next video.